this evening we'll start the November workshop meeting of the school board. My first order of it, we did meet in executive session to discuss personnel issues. And I would also like to announce the Mr. Stahl is not with us this evening due to his mother's death. I'd like to extend our sympathy to Mr. Stahl and his family on that loss. But does anyone desire to speak to the board? Since all I see is employees, keep your seats and we'll get to work. So, Mr. Schlesinger?
Good evening.
I'd like to present, this is on the financing update.
Yes. Everyone should have a copy, hopefully, of the presentation I just handed out. With this, Peter Edelman, who Stevens and me, he's here to answer any questions on the legal side of this. Last time we met, we discussed the option to go out and solicit bank proposals from local and regional banks to take a look at step one of our financing that we're talking about doing. We received proposals at the end of last week, and we received great proposals, frankly. And I'm really pleased with the report that we have here. So I'll go get right to it. If you turn to page 3, this is the summary of all the proposals that we received. We went out to approximately 20 local and regional banks, ranging from local banks in Reading out to banks in Charlotte, as far as Ohio. We received proposals from 13 different banks, which is a lot in this market. Partly because the strong credit of the district, the AA, as well as the term. We're talking about this transaction alone is about 5.5 years, so that opened the door for a lot of the banks that are very interested in giving us fixed rates for the full term. You might remember from my estimates from the previous transaction numbers, I mentioned about 2% rates. Well, as you can see here, the best proposal came from Customer Bank. They offered a 1.35% fix for the full term. And I'll point out, that's the best proposal I've ever received for that term. So this is very strong. They're willing to hold the rate for us to settle early next year. We're not ready tonight to accept any proposals if we're not going to be advertised. But in this case, they understand that we'll wait for a future meeting, hopefully next week, to have everything advertised. But based on this proposal alone, you're going to save well over what the bond market is. And I'll point that out in the bottom in a second. But you can see we already received other proposals from Santander, QNB, BB&T, PNC, First Niagara. Lots of the ones you'll see around town, but some of which aren't around here. So again, it's a good testament to the strong credit rating of the school districts. As a comparison, if you look at the green box, green line underneath on page 3, based on that interest rate alone, this is about a $5 million refinancing to take out the Series A and B of 2009. That would produce approximate savings of $284,000. That's net of all estimated fees. As a comparison, right underneath that section, we have a bond issue for both a 20 basis points over MMD, which is a pretty aggressive interest rate, and a 30 basis points over MMD, as well as a break even on what the bond market would have to be to beat it. Again, based on 20 or 30 over, that saves you about $238,000 to $250,000. So right there, we're already beating the bond market by close to $30,000. That's about 10% at least above that. The bond issue would need to be MMD minus something, and that is definitely not attainable right now. So it's pretty clear that my recommendation here is to go with the lowest rate from Customer Bank. It is prepayable anytime without penalties. So certainly if you get lower than 135, we can come back and refinance it. Or if you had some excess cash, you can certainly prepay it. But all the bells and whistles you would want from this, the lower cost of issuance, make up the reason why the savings are so much higher than the bond market. So I'll stop for a second, unless someone has any questions on this page, but I'm very excited about it.
So with that, with that $284,058, would that be our savings, including all your fees? And
Yes. Yes, that is the local effort savings. I should point that out. And the numbers are behind this. The state share, the state generates some too. This would be what's in your pocket. $284,000. I'll quickly turn to the next couple pages, and this will show you how the numbers look. Again, this should be somewhat similar to what we've seen in the past. Page 4 would be an update of what our financing plan is, that three-step process. Step 1 now has the 135 in it based on the customer's bank proposal. We have the numbers set right now for savings up front. We haven't made any final decisions. If you want to take savings over a different period of time, you can make that adjustment if you'd like. Again, we're recommending that we come back at your next meeting to authorize the resolution to accept this proposal, and we can certainly make the change prior to that meeting. The other two options, or step 2 and step 3, are based on, again, current estimates on the bond market. In either case, we wouldn't be selling bonds either until later this year or early next year, but this gives you an idea of where we sit based on current conditions. Again, overall, we're still looking close to $1.5 million of overall savings when you take out all that debt.
Jamie, does it matter that the customer bank's a relatively new bank?
Not just based on.
No, and the size of assets don't matter as well.
No, ultimately here, I've worked with them a number of times. Actually, Peter and I just worked on one earlier this year with Exeter Township. They're around. Frankly, they want to lend, and as long as we can get the settlement with their money, we should be fine. So there's no problem.
How long is that rate good for?
It's fixed for the full term. So I'll take you right to that page to show you what that means. If you turn to page 9 of the presentation.
I'm sorry, what I meant is,
Oh,
how long
long
can you hold them to that rate?
They'll hold it until we settle, which will be in January. So they're gonna hold it for essentially 60 days.
No matter what the market does.
Yeah. At this point, I don't think there's any reason why you should hold off in any fashion. This is a very aggressive proposal. But that's not uncommon for banks to hold rates for a certain period of time. Again, generally 60 days is a good number to have, and we kind of hit this one at the right time. We had the proposals come in just enough for us to be able to get them in and then settle earlier next year. So it falls right within the time. So the analysis is simple enough. Again, we're going from high to low with interest rates. We're talking about the A and B of 09. The existing debt service payments that you would have paid on column 9, on page 9, are shown. Again, they range between $600,000 to $700,000 up to $1 million. We structured the payments to be around what you had before, where we take the savings up front right now. So again, we generate close to $280,000 in the 14-15 year, and then after that, it's essentially break even. As a side note, what is not shown here is because you would have a bank loan in this case, the paying agent that you would normally pay a small fee to annually between Series A and B, you won't need to pay them anymore. So there's some administrative savings to generate as well on top of this. So, side note with all this. So, I'll sort of take a breath for a second. All the other numbers behind it are the backup to the other step 2 and step 3. For tonight, I think it's probably worthwhile focusing on step 1, and then we can certainly talk about step 2 and step 3 in a future meeting.
I'd just like to ask our business manager for her opinion on this proposal.
Well, I can say that I was very excited last Wednesday or Thursday when I saw the number. I think it, I appreciate the recommendation to do the RFP and the board supporting that. It definitely was the right time to do it, and obviously there are banks that are very interested in this term of financing. It's shorter, so it is a great opportunity. Just to add, there are other pieces that are opportunities that we're facing, and one of the things we wanted to discuss at business function, which had to be canceled tonight or postponed until next Tuesday, was how we wanted to proceed with the other pieces, which will be bond issues. And we'll have that discussion next Tuesday at business function at 5:30. If we have a discussion this evening, we would tonight at this meeting discuss with Peter how the parameters resolution, because we have to wrap that up. So the plan now is to discuss next Tuesday at 5:30 what direction we're going in with the other two issues, And then December 2nd, which is reorganization, but we have a workshop, which could be special voting as well, have the parameters resolution approved then, because how we decide which way to proceed impacts how the resolution is written. But for next Tuesday, we can have a resolution to approve the bulk note to move ahead with that piece.
Would it be eligible to begin the refunding on the Series B and the Series C?
Would you say that again?
When are we eligible to begin the refunding on B and C?
The step 2 and step 3, they're related to the 2010 issue. The other, the 09s are all done at this point. This would be what's left of the 09s.
And when is that window open?
Well, one of them's already passed. The Series B was November 15th, almost passed. And the Series A would be February 1st. So we'd be settling just before the call date. So we really wouldn't have any negative arbitrage in the escrow. So that's why this one works very well. There's really not a lot of loss potential. The other issues related to 2010 are on 5/15/2015. So we begin to start to settle those, early enough. You can do them as current period fundings. So that's what makes it, valuable to do it at that time. So there's less money in your escrows, which aren't very low right now.
I guess the other thing I'll say is that my only concern with step 1 is that you have a loan that matures in 5 years. And originally, when I joined the board, my goal was somehow to get creative and to push the maturities out. We're talking about multi-generational lows in interest rates. I have been reading the code, trying to see what we can do and cannot do during refunding. 5 years seems to be short. We're going short at the lowest interest rate.
That's your current maturity of the debt we're fighting. We're not shortening. We're keeping the same fiscal years that we have. Your other debt does go out longer, as you know.
Yeah.
I think there's probably a useful life test and such based on the previous financing that they used for. This one just happens to fall under maturity list.
And I do understand that, again, from the code. In terms of your comment about it being a bond issue for steps 2 and 3, why does it have to be a bond issue?
It doesn't necessarily have to be a bond issue. You could look into the bank loan market as well. Again, the rationale at this point is the term of the other transactions are a little bit farther out. They're more back-end loaded in certain pieces, which does tend to make it easier for to sell bonds. Sometimes banks don't wait the longer term. There's a reason why we got 13 bids here, because of the term of this. Once you go past 10 years, you lose some of the banks that we like to go to. Some banks are starting to get a little scared of the back end of these things, and they're giving us higher maximum rates. Generally speaking, we get banks to offer us fixed rates for 5, 7, 10 years. Once you go past that, we have to have some sort of variable rate function for the cap. And I've been pushing some of these banks overall to provide us a strong enough cap rate. But if you start assuming the worst case scenario, you may be better off going with the bond issue since you're locked in for the full time with the interest rates that they offer. So it is a math problem, of course, and certainly being able to get longer bank loans, but you probably won't be able to get a full fixed rate on a bank loan for the terms that we're talking about here. It's a little more difficult just given the environment right now. But it doesn't, again, not that I'm trying not to do more work here, but if we do have time in between all this, it could go out and solicit again on step 2 and at least step 2, see what we get. But it does, we can do multiple things at multiple times here. But just what I see, it probably makes more sense as a bond issue. But we can certainly go out and solicit and see what happens. But it never hurts. I think good old days, I did the Antietam Lake transaction several years ago. And, you know, I got a 30-year fixed rate bank loan. You don't get those anymore. It just doesn't work that way. But certainly you can get some fixed rates, but going that long makes it more difficult these days. And I don't know if there's much risk on the school.
Any other questions?
Any questions for Peter?
And how does these repayments, and what else we have going as far as repayments that we have? I mean, how is it? Or is this the only thing we can repay?
Well, our overall debt service, you know, for all of the series is above 9 million, whereas these savings that are shown will provide relief in the next 2 fiscal years and a little bit thereafter, the way it's just laid out here right now. So it is savings, it is savings in the next couple of years.
You don't give us some breathing room as far as.
Yes, to the budget, yes.
What you need from us is a vote on step A or the Series A next week.
So at least a motion to say, let's keep moving forward and
And
have it.
some indication of where we want to go with step 2. Anyone else have any questions or thank you?
Can I, not specifically on this, but since you two folks are here, I know we've had a lot of debate on this or discussion. My first question is that what I'd like to propose to the board is something that we've talked about in respect to going into the open market and repurchasing our debt. In reading this and in having some other folks read this, they tell me that there's nothing that precludes us from going into the open market and repurchasing our debt with our cash. Do you folks agree or not?
No, I would agree with that, Tim. I think that we have definitely assisted clients in doing that in the past. It has worked predominantly with lesser rated credits because their bonds tend to trade less than par on the open market. In other words, if you have a credit rating of BBB or single A at most, and your bonds are trading at 85 cents to 90 cents on the dollar, some of our clients have seen that as an opportunity to, in essence, it's a refunding, but you're paying that 85 cents to 90 cents on the dollar versus par. When you talk about a AA rated credit that's issued debt 5-6 years ago, your bonds are trading at a premium right now because it's a great credit and the interest rates are higher than current market rates. So to buy bonds on the open market, and Jane can step in and correct me if I'm wrong, it's much more expensive for you.
But Peter, the basis of comparison is 5 or 10 basis points that we're earning on cash.
Right.
So if I purchase something that is yielding 2 or 3%, I'm able to get a 20 times return or 30 times return on our money. See, I'm not sure why other school districts haven't done this, and that's what I want to make sure that our discussions here don't get bogged down in somebody else hasn't done it, so we're not going to do it.
Oh, certainly.
We have cash, as I understand, that sits on a general fund balance sheet, and we have cash in some of these other accounts. They are invested per statute or mandates or code into certain types of instruments. Right now, because of what's happening, they're earning nothing.
Sure.
what I propose, or what I thought, is if everybody else, corporate America and individuals, are going in there and doing this, why should the school districts? And in particular, what we could do is we could try to go in and with bonds that are maturing in 2015, 2016, 2017, we could go in and try to repurchase those. And we could have relatively short paybacks. And if we made a mistake, the catch-up period is very quick. But even if we pay a premium, getting 20 or 30 times what we're earning seems to be a better use of cash.
Well, when you buy the bonds yourself, though, you're in essence going to cancel that instrument.
Exactly.
Right.
So we're not going to, what's going to happen is Ann's debt service is just going to
It's going to
evaporate.
be reduced, right.
Yeah. So what may happen is if we take, just say that we have 10 or $15 million of balance sheet cash, if we buy 10 or $15 million of debt, I realize that's aggressive, but we could lower our operating costs over the next 2 years by 10 or $15 million.
But you have no reserve.
Right.
And I think that's the question is, are we comfortable not having a reserve? And it seems to me, having gone through the first budget process, that we weren't comfortable with that. I mean, that seemed to be the sort of discussion that we had. I think I understand what you're saying, Tim. But is that the issue? Is that the issue of having a reserve versus not having a reserve? Basically buying out your debt, which includes your operations.
And what would that do to our bond rate, our rating, as far as what we have now, if we have no reserves?
That's a good question. I mean, the rating agencies are coming out with different criteria as time goes on. Those constantly changing. Certainly, reserves are a big key to how they figure out what you are. But reduction of debt also plays into a factor as well. So really, it's balancing out essentially what they look at. So, you always have to work with them on what you want to do and see what their thought is. Because again, it doesn't happen at all. So you start to talk to them and see what their thought process is, making it unofficial in the meeting.
And one of the things, Michael, I'll just say, and why I said it would pay itself, is that if you eliminated debt service costs, the budget of Exeter would go into a positive position, and you'd be generating a profit, and you could then reuse to fill a general fund, or you could reduce taxes or something along those lines. And in terms of what I see, Jamie had done a presentation a while back with his colleague, and it showed the tremendous flatness of our debt service. And again, I understand from this why Pennsylvania doesn't want these big bullet maturities way out there so that one day we wake up and say we owe somebody $30 million. But legally, how flat does it have to be? It looks as though we're actually going for, really fine tuning. Is flat within $1 million? Or how does that, legally, what's the answer?
Yeah, I mean, the act, this is the Pennsylvania Local Government Act. The general requirement is that your debt on an overall basis has to be level. So it doesn't provide a lot of guidance as to what level means. But in practice, what the Department of Community and Economic Development looks for is a fluctuation of no more than 10%. So it depends on your total overall debt service as to how much play there is in those numbers. What they don't, I think what they'd be troubled with is if like it increased by 10% each year, that's not something they're going to permit. Rather, that 10% fluff is more of, say, an aberration in any one particular year, if everything else is overall level.
Now tell me, Peter, you said something interesting. They wouldn't permit. In my brief conversations with them, they seem to turn those decisions over to us.
Well, what we have done.
Has there been cases or situations where you can point that somebody has been called on the carpet for this debt service, or is it, again, just a practice that we haven't seen?
It's really just a practice. I mean, there have been challenges to debt proceedings that are litigated on a agency level at the department, and there are reported cases as to those challenges, but those tend to be limited to taxpayer challenges, most of which are outside of the scope of the Debt Act and are easily dismissed. What we have done, though, in particular situations where it's either a close call or perhaps we're pushing the envelope a little bit, is to submit a proposed structure to the Commonwealth before debt's issued, get their blessing ahead of time, so that when proceedings are submitted, we're not jeopardizing the district's a transaction that's already been sold, in other words. So there's, I think there's some play that's available with the department, but it's something that you would want to work out with them ahead of time.
In terms of some of the bonds that we can repurchase, just going back, I want to make sure also that I'm clear. There's some taxable municipals that we have on our balance sheet. Would those cause any particular problem if we went in to repurchase those?
Are you saying that the district has issued taxable debt? That-
Related to the termination.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It was part of the 2013
Series B at
related to.
Oh, I remember now. Yep. Just needed to jog my memory.
non-integrated swap, I assume.
Yep, I remember now, certainly. So your same question, can you buy those on the open market?
Yeah, I mean, would there be any?
There's no restriction versus tax-free versus taxable.
Because then that would actually increase the incentive for us to use some of our
Because
balance sheet cash.
more
Because we'd be
expensive,
able to, it's American. And then finally, I'm sorry. Oh,
You guys commented on that thought, which I didn't catch the.
there's
nuance of it.
some debt that, because of unique circumstances, have been issued at not municipal rates, but taxable rates, so that they are a slightly higher cost debt. So if we have to actually pick what we go in and try to purchase, we would try to pick something that costs us the most. And then finally, Peter, the whole issue of unfunded pension liability. And for the life of me, I can't understand how this act was okayed by anyone with any accounting background. Because you have an unfunded pension liability that is the ultimate in long-term liability. And yet, I understood Ann's email reading of your comments that we were somewhat restricted to short-term, what was on the balance sheet, basically payable in a year. And that we would have, if we were to fund that with a debt issue, we'd have to do it with a one-year note or something along those lines to link the maturities. My understanding is that next year we're going to be putting some of that liability on our balance sheet. Is that correct?
Right, it's on the entity-wide statement, not the governmental statements, but the statement of that position, all school districts have to do.
do you see anything that would ever prohibit us from going in and issuing debt to fund the unfunded pension liability, and then putting it onto our debt service and our balance sheet at the longer end of the curve?
I think my interpretation is based on the provisions of the Debt Act again. And unless there's an amendment to the Debt Act, a school district won't be able to borrow on a long-term basis to fund pension liabilities. That piece of the Debt Act really is limited to counties and cities who manage and own their own pension obligations. So I think it would, Jamie, is that your
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
It would take an amendment to the Debt Act before the district could do something like that. Now it's not to say that might not happen, but at the moment, I don't think we can do it.
Well, I mean, what it does here, and again, I realize that you're not looking at this, I am, but it actually talks about school districts, pro rata shares of unfunded pension liabilities in a pension plan or a pension trust fund. I thought the issue was more that we just didn't have it on our balance sheet as opposed to anything else, that we didn't have an easy way to actually calculate what we were funding.
The pension bonds that I've been involved in, the issuers have all had actuaries that they engage to determine their pension obligations, because they again own and manage those pensions. So from the way I understand PSERS works, that obligation or that pension plan is managed by the Commonwealth, and you just make annual payments to set up your annual obligation. So in other words, it's a working capital obligation of the school district on an annual basis.
But what do you understand go on our
Well,
back?
it's a GASB pronouncement where GASB feels that, as we participate in PSERS, PSERS is the one that's going to tell us. It's going to be based upon the school district's payroll. They're going to do the calculation, and it has to be on the entity-wide statements. And it really relates to a GASB pronouncement. It's not our calculation, it would be PSERS calculation.
And see what we can do if we take a look at this is, we're talking about stress in 2015, 2016, 2017, with repurchases of debt out there and with funding some of these unfunded pension liabilities. We can take literally millions out of our operating expense line in any given year. We can simply take millions out and take off a lot of the short-term stresses. And I realize, again, we're pushing the envelope because this hasn't been done a lot. But in some cases with pension, it's just coming onto the balance sheet. And in other cases, I'm not really sure why people don't do more of their own repurchases, but for whatever reason. So, this is, again, thinking about how do you take some of the stress off of our income statement, but we're not having 6 months of budget discussions and still coming up with a $2 or $3 million bonus. Anyway, we appreciate it.
It's an interesting thought, and certainly love to talk to you some more about it if that's appropriate.
Fantastic. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Would you do that? So that you can tell us all?
I mean, talk to the entire board, absolutely.
No, the entire board doesn't know what you're talking about.
So some of us.
Well, I'm not saying you're like stupid.
Would you like us to come back next week with a resolution to move forward with the customer bank at this point? Is that some reason?
Please do.
Great, we'll get started then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schlepper, or Dr. Schlepper. And we don't want everybody to think just because we're putting you in first that you can go out the door like they did.
I'll go at the end then. Before I start, I want to say thank you and happy Veterans Day to people in the room who served. I'm involved in armed forces, thank you. My report today is pretty much a report on Jackson Hole Elementary School. And we had a good year last year, a very good academic year. We had great gains in our SPP scores. It was nice to see in the paper the other day. And our PSSA scores continue to show that we're doing a really nice job there. We had great gains, and what's interesting is I looked over the 8-year period of our PSSA scores, that we're actually above our average while doubling our free and reduced population, which we all know is the biggest predictor of school failure. Free and reduced is a 1-to-1 correlation with, there's 1-to-1 correlation, it's a high correlation between that and school failure. Our teachers are always concerned about it. It's part of their evaluation. It's part of our building score. So it involves a lot of us. So the fourth grade teachers, it's 35% of their evaluation. So they're very concerned about it. It was nice to see that we made great jump last year from the previous year. Our investigations math program is going along well. It's a lot of work for our teachers. It's a lot of they have to stay ahead of the curve. It's taking a lot of their time, a lot of effort. We're proud of their efforts, and we're going along. Doing the observations and walkthroughs, something that we do, and it's kind of funny to see the math. The kids now in math, they're all over the room, and not all the time, but you go in, you catch them in the room, and they're playing games, and they're doing things, and they're having fun doing math. There's definitely a lot more engagement with the children. It's kind of fun to see how they're learning and kind of get a little look into how these people develop the whole program and what their thoughts are about always teaching concepts and about the way they introduce concepts to the kids. We're doing our intruder drills, which is a hard thing. We do our intruder drills, and it's really school-based. I mean, if you're in a high school and someone comes in the front door and you have 12th grade kids and 10th grade kids, and you're concerned about having opportunity for kids to flee that situation, that's great. I mean, for us, in a relatively smaller setting, with little kids, this is a disaster. I mean, I said, okay, we're going to do this intruder drill, and I make this announcement, and okay, there's someone in there, we'll start. I mean, I just walked down the hall, I'm standing there watching the first grade kids walk out of the classroom. I mean, if I was an intruder, or if I was, a person who was, I mean, this is like the worst idea ever. I understand the state's saying this is something we should try to do, but it really doesn't make sense for us. Maybe people at the most remote parts of the building, but for our kids, secondary, they don't understand that whole concept of leaving quietly and quickly. They don't understand, they don't comprehend what we're trying to do. They're 5 years old. So, we've been practicing them and trying to get to better places. After schools up on top of the soccer fields, they're fantastic up there. You can't see them, you don't know what's going on up there. It's wonderful. That lower half where people go down to the soccer field and try different things. We're going to go now to, across the street to the church, because I don't see any place where our kids would go that would be anything better than locking down and staying locked down. But we know we're trying. We'll try some more things again when we go next year.
Excuse me, are you saying that with an intruder drill, you're supposed to flee the building?
One of the things that we're practicing both. I mean, the state, the most recent recommendation for the ALICE training is that you should try to flee if you could. And like in a place like the high school, like I said, I completely understand it. I think that's a really valid point. It's hard to make one size fit all. For our school, the kids are coming down the stairs. They just don't get it. It's like I said, I was acting like an intruder. I was just walking. I could walk and see them all running down there. It's like they're better off in their room by far. But
I thought that we were sheltering in place.
It depends on the situation. They've used a lot of data to determine that a lot of times, you know, the kids became sitting ducks, and the intruder generally will stay in the building and not go to the exterior of the building, and they know where to look for the kids. You know, so it's not going to be that difficult for them to get into a commons area like the cafeteria or like the library or something, or the gymnasium, or, you know, to get into a classroom, and then the kids are all trapped in there, and they're hiding under the desks, and they're, you know, that's how a lot of the kids got shot in the library at Columbine. Was it Columbine done? And only to find out that there was a door leading to the outside, and they had a couple of minutes and they could have all gotten out to safety. So the latest thinking is that, you know, if you know where the intruder is, then there needs to be an announcement, and people who are nowhere near where the intruder may be, if you can find an exit, get out. And it's got to be a situational thing. Am I near an exit? Can I safely get the kids out? How far away is this guy? So, you know, there's no hard and fast rules, and that's the problem that, you know, teachers know that in an instant like that, they're going to have to make that decision. But that is the guidance from the state police.
Joe, you're talking about the UCC trip, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, we thought about it, and I'm certain, you know, certainly if we had fourth grade on the first floor or on the ground floor, I think they can make a good run for it and have a chance at it. Our kindergarten, I think, is just walking out like just sitting ducks. I mean, it's the no concept of it. You know, I think that we probably have a few classrooms that would be able to do it. But as far as like the mass exercise that we tried, you know, certainly we encourage people to practice it if it seems to be the most logical thing to do. Or if there's an intruder and the battle's going on somewhere and you tell people to flee, that's one thing. But as far as it being a strategy for us, and we've done 3 of them now at this point, and it's worse. I mean, they're better off being locked into a classroom at this point for the most part. But we're practicing and we're trying different things. So, like I said, half the school is really great and they do a nice job. They go out to the gym, go out to the cafeteria. It's the other half that's down there in the school line. We have to have a different time for that. All the teachers were all in agreement with this. This is their best plan. So, we're working on it. We have our professional learning communities, we have the early dismissal days, and our teachers are mostly working on math. And so our kindergarten is working on some things that are new for them. But the other grade levels are all working on their math and trying to stay ahead of it, looking at what the lessons are, what's coming up. It's kind of it's hard to describe. They look at a lesson and it's hard for them to comprehend themselves as teachers what they're going to be teaching 3 lessons ahead. And that's like they can look into, okay, what do we need for chapter 4? They're kind of working on the next day and maybe the next day. So it's hard for them to say, you know, it's the first time we're doing it. It's a lot of learning curve for them. Our safety, we lost our 645 straight days without workman's comp, and someone was bitten by a bug on the playground.
But that was not preventable.
Yes, you gotta have one.
Yeah.
That's the one that.
What could you have done? I don't know. An act of God. Actually, someone else was bitten but didn't have a reaction, so we're up to 16 days again right now.
Bug and free visitor.
The firehouse. It was nice to see the firehouse, the Exeter Township. Fire police came there and they set up a smokehouse like we used to have years ago, and the kids crawl through it, our 3rd graders, and it's a nice experience for them. I think it's a great experience, so I wish it would have been something that we kept doing all the time. I guess it was refurbished by a few grants, and they got it back in action again. And for the kids to go through there and learn, hey, listen, you feel the door with the back of your hand, you do certain things. There are certain ways to prevent fires. That's an important lesson for children. You can carry that through your life. And it was, you know, this year our 3rd graders went through it, and next year our 3rd graders will go through it. It's nice to see it back in operation. It's like the one-room schoolhouse we had open this year. Our librarian taught pretty many lessons up there for 3rd and 4th grade students. And, you know, we do need to use that more. Like just going in there for the first time, what they see when they go in there. Of course, it's not ready for school or anything like that, but you know, they get a little concept of what's going on. It's a nice one day to go and have a lesson, but it's a lot of fun for the kids. And you know, on a sadder note, we lost our custodian Hector Tarango pretty quickly, and it's really been a blow to everyone. this good guy, he was a kind guy. We got along and joked with everyone, and he was just like, was sick, and then it was like, went home for a couple days, and it was like over. It was really sudden, and, you know, still to this day, I think it's like more and more, he's missed more and more now, because it's like he was almost like just gone for a few weeks, and now he's, where's that day, right? You know, it's certain times we're gonna do a fire drill, I'm ready to call. So, you know, we miss him, and it was a sad thing for our school. Our building climate in school, you know, we learned a long time ago as a group that we control the environment where we live in, where we work in. And that's really a unique situation. Not many of us could go to work and say that we have the ability to control our work environment. And we get to a problem once every 3 years, 4 years, where a situation will happen in our school, and it's time to get together and talk. And we know that we're not talking about the person. When I say a situation, let's say it's someone who was, the last time it happened was about 3 years ago, when someone got really short with the guidance counselor over bringing kids back from PSSA. There were 5 or 6 people who were in my office within an hour saying, hey, did you hear what happened with so-and-so? I heard it, thanks. We got together as a group and we said, you know, we're all working, I always make the analogy, we're doing like an archaeological dig, we're all working in there nicely. If someone turns the hose on, we're all working in the mud. You know, I don't want to work in the mud. Nobody else wants to work in the mud. We have the ability to work as professionals, to work cooperatively all the time. And it was the topic of my dissertation in school. It's something I believe in strongly, and something that we do. We have, you know, adult problems are at extreme minimum. If it happens, it's something that's kind of goes around our school pretty fast. People want to know that this doesn't happen again. And, you know, I look at our school, and I look at our parents, I look at what's going on. We've been together for 13 years in that building. And that's a long time for things to go wrong. Climate could go wrong, scores could go down, parents could be unhappy. Different things can happen during that time. We're in a good state. We're in a really good state in our building. I think working cooperatively and people pulling together, like I always say, it's not the team that has all the high-priced players that win. It's not the Yankees who win every year, if that were the case. It's the teams that work together that win. And when I see us like have good improvements and we're making nice games and things and we're working together, I attribute the fact that people are working together. I think it's a big part of what we do. It's a real big part of what we do. So, you know, in looking at our school now and looking at our school through the years, we have a nice place to work. We have a very successful school. Our parents have very little complaints. I mean, I don't know the times when people call and complain or call the administration doing anything or saying, I don't know how often that, I don't think it happens that often at all. We have people file grievances. People are happy to come to work and do their best. And that's basically where we are. It's the state of our school right now. It's the state of our school for the last 13 years. And I'm happy to go to work there every day. Any questions?
I just want to say, Dr. Slocker, I was looking, I knew you were coming tonight, so I looked at what the scores were on the website of PBD. And I don't know, how many children do you have living in poverty? What's your poverty rate?
Last year, I think we ended at like 35%. It's a little lower right now. It was, I mean, by the end of the year, we'll be there. It's never gone down, ever.
Well, I see that your mathematics, you have 57% advanced. That's what it says here. And that in reading, you have almost 29% advanced students. So I think that is very commendable. First of all, for the students and the teachers that work there. I think you're doing a great job, and I've been in your building, and it's a warm place to be. And the teachers, I think, are happy to be there. I think all the children that I saw in those schools were all engaged and all seemed to be very, very happy. So I congratulate you.
Thank you. I think it's, you know, I think as a group we always have to keep our facts. What are we doing? We have a bunch of little kids in the building. We teach the kids who the oldest ones are 10, the youngest ones are 5. You know, they're not going to Harvard tomorrow. They have to have a school experience. I mean, I was happy in my elementary school. I don't remember what I did in science. I remember the things we did. I remember like going to school and being happy. I remember going to school and never saying I didn't want to go there. I mean, that's got to be the number one thing. That's the biggest red flag in our school for me, is when someone calls up and they say their kid doesn't want to go to school anymore. That is, it doesn't get any worse than that. Because they have to come and they want to be engaged if they want to be successful. And it's what we work for. It's what we work at. I think it's an important part of what we do all the time. Thank you for your time. This is nice. Yes?
What do you consider your biggest challenge? I mean, you've talked a lot of good things and some issues, but if you could just snap your fingers and have something go away or something happen, what honestly would it be? What's your biggest challenge?
This year, overall, or this year?
Yeah, just this year.
I think we have really high numbers in third grade. We're at 25 across, and now we're with 26. And last year, those same teachers had 18. I could see the stress level from them really increase at that point. I think that's a big challenge for us right there. For me personally, the whole observation process we do, we used to go and observe teachers and talk to them about what we saw and talk about making improvements. Now it's literally a good 10 days at least. And so I talk about a lesson that I saw a teacher teach 10 days ago. For me, that's crazy talk. I mean, for me, I look at all the things that we do back and forth. It looks nice. It's all great, all in one spot. But it doesn't kind of make sense to me as an educator. That's frustrating for me. I think this year our class size in third grade is really, that's a source of stress for a lot of people.
The last time you talked with us, you mentioned how the Ready, Set, Read program was a challenge for you because of the organization. Has that improved?
They're not there this year. I like them not to have it. It just became too much of a burden for. I didn't see the gains. I mean, I saw the gains for those people who did it. It was great. I didn't see the gains for us. I didn't see the gains for our kids based on what it took to have to keep it running. That's just I weighed that well. I didn't see it. The people generally, they loved it. They came in and had altruistic ideas about what they were doing and went home and were so happy that they got to work with some children, but they really didn't have to know what they were doing. And they did a great job. They did their best, but it wasn't as productive as I would have thought.
So did we lose a teacher in third grade that we now have? We have only 2 classes?
No, we have 3. We have 3. It's just been that class has been kind of bigger going all the way through. Now our kindergarten again this year is pretty large as well. Kindergarten we're at 22, 23, and we've been in a situation before where the way the numbers fall, when you're a smaller school, you don't have a lot of places to spread them out. They can go pretty quickly or can go lower pretty quickly. And we've had a lot of years of 20, 19, 18 kind of years, and we're at 23 right now. I think 23, 22. It's a little bit, the class sizes that they go. That's a challenge.
Was there an AIDS helper or anything? Do you have AIDS?
We do. We have excellent aides. That's something we don't ever give credit to as a school district. We have fantastic aides. We have people who are working, 12 hours an hour, who are certified teachers, who are doing a fabulous job for us. We have aides in this district that do a great job, that really are unsung heroes. They're working directly with the kids. They're supporting teachers. They're doing things. That's really a gold mine for us, the returns that we get from our aides, without a question.
So do you people have them in first, second, and
Yes,
third grade?
yes, we all have them at 3 levels, yes.
Because that seems like, especially when you have children that live in poverty, they usually have a lot more needs than, kids that are that have 2 parents and don't have all the stresses of what's going on with living in poverty. So I know that smaller class sizes would be much more beneficial.
I just noticed how much it impacted 3rd grade this year. They went from this to that. I could just see it.
Dr. Sloffer, I too want to congratulate you on your scores, but I also want to point out that I attended a math night a couple of weeks ago, and we got a little bit of a taste of this at our public meeting where we had maybe 8 people show up who had questions about the math program, and you guys had about 130 in the room that night. And on a much larger scale, the crowd was expressing its frustration. The parents was sort of adapting themselves to the program. A lot of them, their kids were sort of getting it, especially the younger kids, because they didn't sort of have to change. But what I really appreciated was as the pot was boiling, you had the ability to diffuse that situation, and I was very impressed with how you supported Heidi Rockling as she was getting hammered on by people in the crowd, and how you stepped to her defense and supported the math program and supported her, and were able to diffuse some of those people who were getting very upset. I'd have wished those same people would have come to the public board meeting, because I would have loved the rest of the board to have seen some of the frustration that you guys experienced that night. And I don't mean that as a negative toward the math program. I mean, the fact of the matter is that we're asking people to change the way they did things because we want to prepare them for the future. But I thought you did a great job because you had a crowd that was clearly upset. So congratulations.
They were kind of going in the wrong direction. I just kept moving across there. And then I said, I knew Deb, I have to go out there. I can't just sit here. I have to go out there. It was good. It did work out for sure. For sure, it worked out. It was getting rowdy. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Slaughter?
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Christy, is this your first night back with us?
Yes, it is.
Good to see you again.
I'm glad to be back.
You have to pass around some baby pictures before you leave.
Yeah. It was hard. It was hard to leave her. So she better be okay when I get home, or Christian's going to be in trouble. So I was supervising bath time.
Next week we'll be reviewing 2 sets of minutes. If anyone has had the opportunity to review them, has come in and as yet, we need to take that now, otherwise move forward. Business functions. Procedures.
Clear, I think, on the attachment review, one of the meeting, on the first page, they have his department, his space, and I think it's just a typo down on there, on the first page.
Attachment 3B.
Yeah, now, the last paragraph, Mr. Leslie pointed out the current challenge the department is facing.
Yes.
That is a department.
Thank you.
Remove the H, please.
Pardon me? Well, I was reading these because I had, was away, so I was reading what they said, so I saw that, but it just, I didn't know.
Do I have anyone else that's on the business functions? Dr. Klein, would you like to bring forward there?
Okay. Under A, it is recommended that the Board of Directors award contracts for fiscal year 2015-2016 for the purchase of the following items through Berks County Joint Purchasing. Under number 1, unleaded gasoline, a tank wagon, PAPCO, at $2.62.26 per gallon. Currently at $2.774 per gallon. Number 2, diesel transport, again at PAPCO, $2.6346 per gallon, down from the current year of $2.9999 per gallon. Heating oil, tank wagon, Tally Petroleum Enterprises this time, $2.8399 per gallon, down from $2.9433 per gallon. And then finally, number 4, natural gas, DS accounts, DS accounts, bid by UGI, 4.322. NT accounts, direct energy, 4.863. Current year for DS, 3.996. And NT, 4.868. Under B, it is recommended that, I'm sorry.
And can you reflect on these prices in terms of the current fluctuations in oil and?
Well, are you asking in terms of our budget or just the environment?
The environment and, I mean, do you feel that the joint purchasing?
Right. I think they're fair rates. When we made the decision to approve these, I'm sure you can always second guess yourself, but they are reasonable rates. They'll provide a predictable budget. In terms of diesel, the savings is about $29,000 per year. The other fluctuations are minimal. A lot has to do with natural gas, the weather impacts. Right now is the best time to really lock in such things. So a lot of things going on in the market, but I think these are favorable. I don't know, Ken, do you have anything to?
One of the county business managers tracks this pretty closely, and he gave a presentation at the bid opening. Basically showed the wet petroleums, the wet carbon fuels, hitting almost a plateau at the bottom. Doesn't mean you've absolutely got the bottom of the market, as he pointed out, but when you start to plateau and the fluctuations get small at the bottom, they don't go dramatically down. The next round is go dramatically up. So they did very well. On the natural gas, for the DS rate, and that is for our buildings with large boilers, that's providing the heating. We got a very good rate last year, amazingly good rate last year. Obviously this year it went back up again. Some of the factors of that are just the general market, the climate of what people think the EPA is going to do, and specifically last winter. Last winter, a lot of guys locked in, especially at the 3.996 rate. They got burned last year, and no one's willing to take that risk to drop a rate for those bulk users. Again, basically our boilers. So that's why that climbed up. We made out last year. This year, no one was willing to buy the business.
Thank you.
And when I had gotten this mailed one, it said on number 3, that the price was going to be $2.6135, and yet on this one,
We changed it on the revision because I picked up the wrong price on the tabulation.
well, what wasn't in it? It wasn't like highlight. I mean, it wasn't like the
Okay.
chart. So I was just wondering if which was which.
I know you didn't have an opportunity to check your email, but I think that did.
Oh, no, I was just wondering. I was just wondering about that. The discrepancy there.
Are we limited by year-to-year contracts, or can we go longer out if we?
We could go longer out, but
Would you ever deem it worthwhile to go longer out on the contract at the prices you've got, or?
You pay for the risk.
Right.
If you catch a magic Contango moment where everything is upside down, you can jump in there. Those are rare, and the windows that those happen are usually days to maybe weeks. Basically, school districts aren't that agile, so we usually miss out on those. Generally, sometimes you can push electricity up 2 years. We have done that in the past. But the petroleum products, they're so volatile. Anyone that's going to give you a 2-year contract is going to hedge quite dramatically. You may get a good price, but the hedge premium that you're paying usually wipes out those savings when you go up past a year.
Yeah, I think one of the other things you have to consider is, and we've had this experience at the tech school. We got a great contract. We went far out. The vendor was not able to meet the contract, filed bankruptcy, and there we were, you know. And then we were thrown out back into the market where it was not pretty.
Business function 5B, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve budget transfers for the month of October 2014 in the amount of $67,214, and that is attachment 5B. (5C), it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve a property tax refund for 2014 in the amount of $3,062.50 to property owners Michael L. and Charlene F. Calcasco, resulting from an exemption granted by the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. That again also appears as an attachment. 5D.
Do we know what percentage of the property taxes are?
I was looking at something else, I'm sorry, this was, number D.
5C.
I'm just curious.
The percentage is the entire amount, it's full exemption.
This, it's granted because the veteran or the owner is at 100% disability. There is a income limit on that, above which I think it's about $64,000 a year. You cannot make more than the 64 to the full step to excuse that. So it's a control program.
Great, thank you.
So did the state reimburse us any amount? Was the state?
That was a
Oh,
joke,
right.
right?
I was just hoping.
The old
5D, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve a property tax refund for 2014 in the amount of $3,114.57 to property owners Robert W. and Judith D. Henry, resulting from an exemption granted by the Department of Military and Veteran Affairs. 5E, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the property tax refund to the property owner St. Lawrence Properties due to reduction granted per court order and stipulation, docket number 13-24840.
Do we know what's
Can
up?
you tell us more?
It was a reduction of just $3,100, so it's refunded $900. And we did not appeal it because obviously based upon what the assessment board decided on. That's right.
5F, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors ratify the following change orders for the Awatin Creek site work rebid project. G9, supply and place geopavers on gravel walkway, walk path remediation in the amount of $2,222.73. And under G10, ADA parking field revisions to ensure ADA parking on the southwestern end of the auxiliary parking lot meets ADA guidelines. $2,491.80. And finally, 5G, it is recommended that the Board of School Directors approve the following credit change orders for the Awatin Creek site work rebid project. Credit number 14, SW16- topsoil stripping and reinstallation in the amount of $25,944. Credit number 15, SW17, earth moving cut for reuse on site, $34,780.50. Credit number 16, SW18, earth moving filled from on-site excavation, $35,763. Credit number 17, SW19, earth moving cut and removed from site, $22,584.72. Credit number 18, SW7, stone base for previous asphalt paving, $678.15. And then a credit for SW12, patching of concrete, which is still under review. And the total of the 6 credits is $119,750.37.
I would also like to point out that in your folders, I summarized all the change orders to date. I've also added a couple which are not on here, and if we get the final information from all parties, there will be some additional offsetting change orders for amended soil that was above quantity allowance and topsoil above quantity allowances. So looking at the overall picture, it's a reduction in contract amount of approximately $46,000. So again, if these do come in to us, they'll be added to the agenda for next week. I know Ken was out at the site in the township today to go over the completion of the land development part, next steps to get some of our escrow funds released with a balance. But can you add anything?
We also met Monday with the Conservation District. They did a walkthrough. They will not sign off on the notice of termination, or what we'll start referring to as the knot, until springtime, when we're sure that every area has got at least 7% stabilization, in other words, green growth. Make sure the trees, for the most part, have made it through the winter. The current Conservation District Inspector is leaving that post this Thursday, so we made it a point to make sure he redlined all the plans, that we have backup documentation or anything. He's already done the inspection. Theoretically, come springtime, the next inspector can come out, look out and go, yep, everything's green, sign off on it, because he's already blessed all the erosion and sediment control plans, the pond conversions to a final status. So hopefully that will all roll well. Meeting with the engineer from the township, from BBC, he saw no problems with things today. He wants to get the aerator into the pond, which is supposed to be due in this week. Once we get that all settled, we can apply for, as Ann said, a reduction in the escrow. They will also hold some of that escrow money until everything is green, the trees are established, and the knot has been signed off on. But otherwise, things are wrapping up well. On all these credits versus the amended soils and topsoil, when the bidding process happened, basically to make it fair for all the bidders, so they don't have to sit there and go, well, how much concrete curbing is repaired, and how much is cut, and how much is filled. We basically presented the bidding documents with, we expected this much cut, this much fill, this much topsoil existing on the site, moved out of the way, work done, and then the topsoil put back in. That's what these first four, 16, 17, and 18 represented. In classic Pedrick fashion, when we went to try to strip topsoil off, we found that it was either contaminated or not there at all. So a lot of these things that we projected would be part of the bid went away. To our benefit, we still, we're going to be net positive 46,000, but we did have to add more topsoil, bring more things into the site, but we actually took less out and had less to less labor involved in moving things around. And that's why there's such a dramatic change order negative, and why there will be a couple sizable ads. Again, the net is to our good, but it's a matter of how we bid things out so that we try to get the best bids as possible as it was going up to one. But that was the process and the mindset of EI and Stackhouse when we put those things together. There was a guess of what they would find based on takeoffs, but it didn't match up that way, but it did work out to our benefit.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Bender, personnel.
Part A, we have resignations. Number 1, support staff, and number 2, school health services. I was going to ask, is Dr. Gibbons one of the recent appointments we had?
Yes.
Did he give a reason for?
He did not, he sent a letter saying that he was resigning.
So we need to find another position.
We do.
How do we usually go about it?
I can't say that I know that since we haven't had to look for one for a while. Don, do you know?
We had the last time checked around, and maybe Mr. Keenan knows some folks. It's usually been someone in the community because it is a volunteer position more or less, so we usually try to find someone in the community who's willing to do it. Thus far we haven't found anyone.
I could recommend a few names to you for
Please do it in the contact.
Part B, we have appointments of substitute teachers, both indicated and guest teachers. Part 2, support staff. Number 3, extracurricular staff. And that's under appointments. Part C, a change of status for support staff. Part D, we have leaves of absence for our syndicated staff. And finally, Part E, your staff conferences.
Dr. Bender, I just want to bring up the fact that numbers 1 and 2 in staff conferences, the conference for both of those will commence prior to the vote next week. So in the event that any board has a concern about those conferences, we would need to discuss that now if we want to stop the conference from occurring.
Which number of things?
The first 2.
Can you explain? Number 1, I didn't explain. What's community-based instruction video model?
Community-based instruction is basically the students in that class are life skills students, and they go out in the community and they have experiences to be able to live on their own, hopefully. And so that's I don't know what the video modeling is. Sue, do you know what video modeling part of
I
it
think
is?
what video modeling is some new curriculum components where you take video of the kids doing some of the community-based implementation of the instruction, and they take it back in the classroom to kind of debrief with the kids about how that went, what could we do better, who kind of had it, who needs to work on it. So it's kind of taking what's happening in the real time out in the community and then bringing it back in the classroom.
Thank you.
I have a question. Why is it that doesn't the BCIU have a list of all their classes that they're going to be doing, like say first semester?
No.
How do they go about? How do we just throw these out and say here this is and here this is? Has to be some kind of organization.
Well, yeah, there is, but oftentimes there's maybe 2 weeks' notice.
2 weeks, what?
Sometimes. I mean, they don't put them all out that far in advance with the dates and everything. They might know what they're going to present, but they might not know exactly what the date and time is.
So, I mean, I remember taking writing courses and we always knew way ahead of time you know.
Well, they put out their summer catalog usually by early April, so you know, they have their summer programs down. But during the school year, things come up and we often don't hear about them until, you know, sometimes even days before they occur. Has that been your experience, Dr. Miller? Because I know it mainly,
It is, I mean, sometimes 2 weeks is the general norm of when we get a notice about something, and then it's trying to get it out to our staff, they can look at it, see if they can, you know, get to it, and some things are pretty mandatory, like our safety training.
right.
They have to get to that as required. Other stuff is what would be good, you know, for them to get out to the training and get to. But it is, we get very little notice. I really wish they would do a better job at the planning, but we don't get much notice at all.
Well, maybe you want to let them know that.
I will let them know.
You know, we're not happy with, you know, something after the fact that we're voting on that happened before the fact. You know, I can't believe that they're under a state organization, they should know how things operate in school districts.
I'll make sure I let them know.
That's it for personnel.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pitcher, that's it.
Yeah, I can. Under student functions, we will be reporting 8 field trips that are within the 60-mile radius, and we will be approving, or at least being asked to approve, one field trip beyond the 60-mile radius, and that's the senior high band orchestra and chorus members to perform at Disney World in Orlando, Florida, which is just over 60. Since we don't get geography.
Any other items?
Oh.
I'd just like to recognize Mr. Mishler and the event that they had last week at the high school in conjunction with Holy Valley Orchestra. They did a terrific job, and we're very impressed.
Just an FYI, my telephone number listed in the 2014-15 staff directory is incorrect.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You want it that way?
Actually, this is a number that I've never had.
Really?
Yes, really. Would you, I could give you my correct number. 610-207-7384. I thought maybe you'd like to write it here.
Put that in the paper too.
Yeah. Turn it in.
I have it in my phone.
Yeah. Actually, if you Google it, it comes right up.
Building security. Who is going to discuss that?
We just, Ann and I wanted to let the board know that we would like to enhance and update the security in this building by adding an alarm system and so forth. And just would like to put that on the agenda for next week. I think the total cost came to about $22,000. Is that correct, Ann?
Correct. And the components that drive that cost would include some cameras, 5 exterior interior cameras, an alarm system with keypads, motion detectors, and the other component would be a card access system connected to the existing doors.
And is there a monitoring fee, and is that included in that $22,000?
No, it's not. There's $50 per month monitor.
So we'll put that on the agenda for next week.
Anything else? Any other members?
Well, we all know that the scores have come out for all the school districts and the Cyrus schools. I looked on the website for the Cyrus schools, and And kind of have the one from last year that that you showed in the cyber school that compared to the public schools. Well, for the most part, the cyber schools have gone down,
Yes,
even more so than what they originally
to the
were.
low 40s, they,
Yes,
yes.
and we spend so much money on sending our children with their choice in education to these cyber schools, and they are absolutely failing tremendously. And even our one that we send it to, it was 63.4, and I think last year was about that.
Yeah.
Are we going to be working, I know we had talked about creating our own cyber charter school here in the district. Are we going to be working on that for next year?
For next year, well, Sue will talk to you next week about supported cyber school that we're working on, but that's a different thing. That's not really intended to for the majority of kids. But for next year, I don't see that happening unless we purchase a curriculum and then hire our own staff to help support that, because we do not have the capacity with all the other technology efforts that we're making to put all of our classes online, although we're working towards that little by little at the high school level. And that's where most of the kids are, let's just face it. I think there's going to be some press about that. I know that Dave McKeel contacted me from the Reading Eagle, and he said, that these cyber school scores are out, and it's pretty bad for them. They look really bad, and so I gave him some quotes and so forth that he'll probably use, but I think they're planning an article just about what you just said. But unless we purchase our own curriculum, or we purchase someone else's curriculum, or we hire an organization, which Chester County or Media Unit does, contract with them to do this, they will put your courses online. I don't know exactly how much that would cost, and I don't know if that can be done in time for next year, but we would have to purchase another curriculum pad in order to do that. We just don't have the capacity to work on that. That would require somebody working full time on that.
Yes, when they come back to our school, I heard Julie Klein saying they come back, they're so far behind.
And that's exactly part of the quote that I gave today, but they are far behind when they come back, because, and it's not so much that they have a poor curriculum in the cyber school, it's that they don't have the support and the accountability and the guidance that's built into the public school system, that we know where they are, we can, we have ways of getting them to pay attention instead of falling asleep. They're not going to be texting their friends instead of doing their coursework. Whereas if they're left alone in their bedroom with a computer, who has as a teenager, for example, looking at our high school students, how many of them have that internal motivation to stay on task and keep to the work and not get distracted by all the other fun things there are on the computer.
Well, the scores are dismal, and unfortunately, the taxpayers are not getting their money's worth out of these schools, and I think we need to do something to try to wake up these parents who think that their children are getting a great education.
The only thing that we could do differently is continue working with BVA curriculum, but maybe invest some money into hiring one of our own teachers, or maybe more than one of our own teachers, to monitor the kids more carefully. I think BVA does a good job, and I think that's why they're at 60-some%, where everybody else is at 20, 30, 40%, because they do keep after the kids, and if they can't get the kids to comply, they go after the parents. But, again, there's only so much you can do remotely. Sometimes we're even limited in what we can do to get the kids to come to school. certainly it would be harder to try to do that in a virtual environment. So, that's the big problem. Even if we did our own cyber school, unless we did something like the supported cyber school that we're trying out for a couple of our special ed kids, where they're required to come here and then gradually, as they are able to work in a virtual environment with support from teachers on site, gradually we sort of release them back into their home to work on it on their own. And that seems to be having some success. But to say we'd be able to roll that out at large next year, and then to be able to bring those kids back from Agora and all those places and convince the parents that this is what you want to do, I think, that would be very difficult.
Well, I just wanted to bring that up because it's not getting any better out there with these are.
No, it's not, and we're working at the other end of it with the legislators and so forth, but it seems like no matter how much they agree and how much they promise, it takes years and years to get anything done in Harrisburg.
There was a bill passed last session that actually decreased the amount of monitoring of home students.
Yes, I saw that.
And I was just you start to look at that and wonder, I'm going to tell you, I really believe nationally we're on real target with the makeup of the federal legislature now. We're on real target for a national school choice bill that will become law. And I really think what we're on target for is there's just not going to be any quality. It just seems like the government wants out of education, wants out of the business.
Well, I don't know why they don't shut down some of the cyber schools that are underperforming so poorly.
Is there a mechanism to shut them down?
She said that was her responsibility.
That's right, that's exactly right, but now she's
Well,
gone. Well, she's not physically.
That may have been what she felt was her moral obligation, but I don't know whether or not there's any provision in the legislation. There's got to be some reason to be able to revoke the charter.
No, she said she had the authority.
Well,
Or not renew the charter.
Not renewed,
Yeah.
she had to wait till it came up for renewal. And that would happen gradually over time, because she said it all staggered in the years that they would come up for renewal. But again, she has already announced her retirement even before Corbett lost the election, and July took place either way, and
they're
I have no idea what he's going to do. You know what, I would have turned it down too.
I even put it down for the ends. But what I was going to say is that the charters in Philadelphia now are doing some serious advertising about they're not draining resources away, nor are they part of the process.
Excuse me. Well, on a lighter note, Mr. President, I would just like to say that November 10th through the 14th is the ARC, which means Acts of Random Kindness for nationwide. So shall we all do some kind of act of random kindness between November 10th and 14th and keep it going always.
I already had my quota for the year. I thank you all.
Don't forget the Rifleman Health Fair tomorrow, 4 to 7.
There you go.
City of Blankenville does a great job, and there's a huge turnout, and everybody should go get their body mass and check.
Yeah. Last time I went there, it was incredible.
Next Tuesday, we will be staying late for executive meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.